Welcome, listener, to another night in the archives. The hour grows late, but the fire is still warm, and the shelves, ever restless, have offered up something curious once again. I am the archivist, and it's my duty, or perhaps it is my obsession, to uncover the forgotten fragments of our realms. Letters, journals, missives that were never sent. The quiet voices that history almost let slip away. Tonight I'll read to you one such piece. The parchment is fragile, the words, they're heavy with time, but if we listen carefully, perhaps we can hear the echoes of the soul who wrote them, and the world that they once belonged to. So then, let us begin. I have before me a collection of papers, a letter, several missives, and the record of the archivist that pieced together the dreadful events. The archives here work a magic of their own. The archivist in question noted that much of the correspondence was damaged or weathered beyond legibility, yet they are here before me. Weathered, certainly, but intact, and curiously cool to the touch, despite the soot marks they carry. Part 1. The walls still stand. My dearest Alara, I hope this letter finds you, though truthfully, I don't know if it can. The ravens have stopped coming for nearly a week now, and even the old messenger hawks won't roost near the walls anymore. They circle above once, twice, then turn back to the forest. I can't blame them. The air here tastes of iron and ash. Even the sky looks tired. Still, I write, because writing is the only thing that reminds me I'm still alive, that there's still something inside me that remembers gentler days, your laughter over morning tea, the way sunlight fell through the vines on the balcony, the sound of river bells in the valley below our home. Here, the only music is the creak of wood under strain and the groan of stone giving way. The fortress is holding, but barely. Every night we patch another wall, brace another tower, replace another torch. The commander says we endure. That's what Fenwatch does. I wish you could see this place as it once was. The great hall used to gleam with banners and golden shields. Now the fabric hangs in tatters, gold flaked away by frost. We burn broken furniture now, chairs, old carts, anything that will keep the cold from taking us before the enemy does. The walls still stand, barely. You can hear the siege engines before dawn, a deep, slow rhythm like a heartbeat underground. They haven't attacked in full force for days, but every few hours, a reminder. A stone, hurled from somewhere beyond the tree line, crashes into the outer rampart. It's almost a ritual now. The groan, the impact, the echo that rolls across the valley like thunder. The men flinch less each time. We've grown used to waiting for the sound. It's almost worse when it doesn't come. The forest, it's closer than before. I don't mean in distance, though the snowdrifts hide how far it's crept. I mean it feels closer, as though it's listening. When I stand my watch at night, the air grows so still that I can hear my heartbeat echo off the stone. And just beyond the walls, nothing. Not wind, not birds, not even the creak of branches, only silence. A silence that feels like breath held too long. Some of the younger soldiers whisper that the trees move at night, that the shapes we see at the edge of torchlight are not shadows at all. One swore he saw antlers, tall as a man, shifting between the trunks, watching. Another said he found footprints in the snow that led right up to the gate and vanished. I used to laugh at such tales, but lately, I don't laugh so much. The fire in the barracks burns lower each night. We will ration wood and oil carefully now. There are 47 of us left, though that number changes with each dawn. A few went out beyond the walls last week to hunt, to look for roots beneath the frost. Only one returned. He hasn't spoken since. He just stares at the fire with eyes like glass. We tried to ask him what happened. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then he looked down at his hands and began to weep. The commander says we'll hold until spring. He says the reinforcements will come from the capital when the passes thaw. No one's heard from the capital in months. The last message we received was written in a hand that shook, and it ended with the words, "Do not let them in." Alara, I remember when I left home, how proud I was to wear this crest, to guard the borderland. They told us we were keeping the darkness at bay, but no one told us the darkness had roots, that it could wait, patient as stone, until we grew too tired to resist. Sometimes I dream of the river. I dream of dipping my hands into the water and washing away the ash. I wake up, and for a heartbeat, I can almost hear it. The current, the bells, the sound of children laughing in the distance. But then the wind moves through the cracks again, and it's gone. Do you remember that spring festival, the year before I left? You wore a crown of ivy, and the candles reflected off the wine in your glass. You told me to write every day, so that you would know I was still safe. I laughed, because I thought safety was something that could be promised. Now I write, because it's all I have left to give you. Each word feels like a thread back home, thin, fragile, but enough to keep me from unraveling completely. There's a place on the eastern wall where the stone has split. Through the gap, you can see the first light of dawn when the fog is thin. It's the only color here besides gray. A small line of gold between ruin and sky. Some mornings I stand there and imagine that the light is touching you too, miles away, somewhere warm and alive. If this letter finds you, tell Mother I'm well enough. Tell her that the walls still stand. Tell her that her son still dreams of the valley, of spring mornings, the way the river bends beneath the orchard hill. And if the birds will not fly this far, then perhaps the wind will carry these words. Perhaps when you open your window, you'll feel the same cold breeze and know it came from me. I will write again when the next raven comes, if it comes. And if it doesn't, then let this be enough. Let it be proof that I tried to hold the line, that I did not break before the walls did. Remember me kindly, Alara, not as a soldier of stone and frost, but as the man who once built you a crown of wildflowers and promised he'd come home. Until then, know that the walls still stand. Always yours, Corin Hale. I have before me a report, the first of two made by Corporal Corin Hale during the final days of the Fenwatch Outpost. While the structure is stiff and formal, it paints a picture of the life of the garrison before the events unfolded. Part 2. The Missing Scouts. Filed as report number 27. From Corporal Corin Hale, Commander Rise. To Commander Rise. Subject: Status update regarding the reconnaissance unit dispatched north-northeast beyond the ridgeline, hereafter referred to as the Missing Scouts. Reporting in accordance with your directive from the 14th day of the Frost Moon. Summary of events. At first light, 2 nights prior, 4 members of the reconnaissance unit, Scouts Warren, Dozel, Petra, and Tane, were dispatched to survey the northern tree line for evidence of enemy encampments or supply lines. Their route was logged, and they were supplied with 3 days' rations and 1 signal flare. The expectation was their return by the following morning. No sign of the party has been observed since departure. At approximately the second watch of the subsequent night, a single hunting knife was recovered. It was embedded in the timber of the outer gate, edge downward, the hilt wrapped in a length of dark cord. No note or identifying marks were found. The weapon was clean, polished even, which is inconsistent with recent use. I have taken the liberty of storing it in the chest near the northern barracks until further instruction. Observations. The men are unsettled. There is growing suspicion among the ranks that the missing unit met with something beyond natural hazard. The snow has not abated for 3 days, and no tracks remain. During my second watch on the parapet, I witnessed intermittent flickers of light within the tree line, approximately 50 to 60 paces beyond the perimeter. These were not consistent with torchlight. The glow was faint, pale, almost argent in hue, moving laterally rather than upward as flame would. Upon closer observation through the spyglass, no movement of figures could be confirmed, yet the air itself appeared to shimmer as though displaced. I did not raise alarm. In truth, Commander, I could not determine if the lights were before me or behind my own eyes. Morale report. The atmosphere in the outpost has changed. Laughter in the mess has dwindled. Speech is quieter, shorter. Men glance at the windows as though expecting to see faces looking in. Private Merrick claims to have seen silhouettes between the trees, tall, thin, wrong in proportion. He says they move without sound, and that they turn to watch when the sentry's torches pass. When I reprimanded him for spreading fear, he swore on the blood of his oath that one of them lifted a hand in greeting. Forgive me, sir. I write these accounts with precision, as duty demands, yet even I feel the weight of something unspoken pressing down upon the fort. There is a stillness, a sense of being observed. On the matter of the lower courtyard well. Yesterday, the surface froze solid. The ice proved thicker than expected, and several soldiers worked to chip it free. When the bucket finally descended, the rope came up slick with a residue not unlike ink. The water itself reflected torchlight poorly, as though it were absorbing the glow rather than mirroring it. Some men refused to drink. Others crossed themselves, with odd gestures I did not recognize. I can confirm, Commander, that when I peered into the well myself, I could not see my own reflection. Restricted area. Chapel sublevel. Per your orders, the lower chamber remains sealed. However, the humming noted in previous reports has intensified. Standing near the stairwell, one may detect a faint vibration underfoot. Rhythmic, pulse-like. I request clarification as to whether this is a known property of the structure's foundations, or if additional wards were once installed there by the previous garrison. The sigil on the locked door continues to emit low heat when approached. Sir, you have not spoken of what lies behind that door since the first month of siege. I do not ask out of insubordination, but out of necessity. Whatever power slumbers there may be stirring, and the men can sense it. Addendum. Night observation, 5th watch. At approximately 2 bells this morning, light snowfall ceased entirely. Silence was complete. No wind, no creak of timber, even the torches burned without sound. For several seconds, all sensation of movement within the outpost stopped. Then, a knock. One deliberate, from the north gate. Not pounding, but polite and expectant. No sentry was posted near enough to identify the source before it ceased. When the gates were examined, no mark was found, save for a faint imprint of frost in the shape of a hand. The fingers were too long. Personal note, unfiled. Commander, this will not be included in the official record, but I must speak plainly. Something in the woods calls to us, not in words, not yet, but in memory. Dreams of rivers we've never seen, of distant bells beneath the ice. Last night, I woke to find the candle still burning, though I'm certain I snuffed it out. Its flame was blue, and it cast no heat. I think the missing scouts followed those lights into the trees, and I think they found something that wanted to be found. Closing statement. Morale declining. Rations secure, but spoiling faster than accounted for. Sound carries strangely. Conversations echo where there should be no stone to reflect them. I recommend full curfew and restricted access to the northern walls after dark. I will, of course, continue to carry out your orders, but I ask this. If we are to fall here, let it be known that we did not fall to steel or hunger, but to silence. It moves among us like a living thing. Should the scouts return, I will update immediately. But in truth, Commander, I fear they already have, in ways we do not yet understand. Respectfully submitted, Corporal Corin Hale, 2nd Garrison, the Outpost at Fenwatch. I have before me a report. The second made by Corporal Corin Hale during the final days of the Fenwatch Outpost. While it starts stiff, formal, like the last, it devolves as he comes to terms with what's happened, what is still happening. It's hard to explain, so instead I will simply read. Part 3. The night the fire died. Recovered fragment of report number 28. Author Corporal Corin Hale. To Commander Rise. I don't know if this will reach you. The couriers won't leave the gates anymore. Not after the last one came back hollow. Still standing, still breathing, but not seeing. They led him inside, sat him by the hearth, and he didn't move until the flames went out. Then he smiled, faintly, and whispered something about the quiet between heartbeats. He hasn't spoken since. I'm writing because I promised I would keep a record, sir, and because the act of writing keeps my hands from shaking. The fire's almost gone now. I'm down to the last stub of a candle, the wax pooling like melted bones. The others are gone. Not dead. Not all of them. Just gone. Status report, Fenwatch Garrison, final entry. At approximately the 3rd watch last night, a sound began beneath the floorboards. It was rhythmic, too steady for footsteps, too deep for the wind. Private Merrick called it a heartbeat, but I think it was more like the sound of something enormous breathing through the stone. The walls began to sweat. You can laugh, sir, if you read this letter. But it's true. Condensation, thick and cold, trickling down the mortar as though the fortress itself were exhaling. The torches burned low without wind. We gathered what men we had and barred the north gate. It was then that the singing began. It wasn't human. It wasn't not human either. A kind of low, layered tone, like dozens of voices speaking the same word, but not quite in time. It came from the forest at first, and then it came from the courtyard, and then from inside the walls. No one could agree on the language. Some said it was prayer, others swore that it was calling their names. Petra tried to shout it down. She climbed the battlement and screamed into the dark until her throat broke. When the sound stopped, she smiled and said, "It's listening." She jumped before we could stop her. We didn't go after her. No one even moved. By morning, half the torches had gone cold. The chapel door still burns faintly, that sigil pulsing like a heartbeat. I thought of breaking it open, but the closer I came, the heavier the air grew, like trying to walk through water. Someone, I think it was Merrick again, said it's waking up. Commander, I think he was right. Personal reflection, unfiled. Do you remember what you told me when I was first stationed here? That a fortress is only as strong as the men who believe in it. We believed once. Now the walls believe more than we do. Stones, they hum softly. If you place your ear against them, you can hear the same sound that came from the forest, only deeper, older. I think it's the same voice. I haven't slept in 2 days. Every time I close my eyes, I see the missing scouts standing at the tree line. Faces pale, eyes like mirrors. They don't move, they don't breathe, but they watch. And when I wake, I can still hear the echoes of their boots in the hall. Final account. Third night after the silence. At dusk, the fire went out. All of them. The hearths, the torches, the lamps. Every flame snuffed at once. Even the coals glowed no longer. The cold came immediately. The kind that bites into your lungs when you breathe. We huddled in the mess hall. 9 of us left, maybe. I remember the sound of teeth chattering. Not from fear at first, but from the cold. Then the chattering stopped sinking. It turned rhythmic again, like breathing, like the sound under the floor. The air shimmered, like heat, but it was freezing. Through that shimmer, shapes began to move. Not men, not quite. They wore the shapes of the scouts. Their mouths opened in unison, and the song began again. Only this time, we understood it. Not in words, but in its meaning. It said, "The fire is done. You may rest." One by one they stood. The men I served with, the friends I bled beside. They stood, and they walked toward the dark. And when the last one left, I realized the voice hadn't stopped singing. It was coming from me. I'm so tired, Commander. So cold. If you ever find this letter, know that I tried. We all did. We held until the night the fire died. And when the morning comes, if it ever does. Tell them we were not taken. We joined. There's a light outside the window now. Candle's gone out. The light is pale, silver. I think the scouts are waiting. Maybe time to go home. I have before me the field journal of the archivist and explorer discovered the remains of Fenwatch Outpost, recovered what they could of the documents that led to that fateful night, tried to piece together its secrets. Part 4. Recovered from the Ashes. Filed by archivist Rin de Vale, Imperial Historical Conservatory. Field Journal, entry 772B. Field entry, transcribed at dusk. The ruins of Fenwatch lie deeper in the marsh than the old maps admit. The water has long since swallowed the lower courtyards. Only the north parapet still stands, half sunk, the bricks blackened and glassy from fire. It has been 3 days since I began the excavation. I am alone now. The assistants returned to the city after finding the first traces of thaumaturgic residue. They claimed their dreams had grown strange. I didn't argue. Some discoveries prefer silence. The air here is thick, like breathing through fabric. The kind of air that remembers heat, even when it's cold. Every so often, the stones hum faintly. Or perhaps that's the wind through the cracks. It's difficult to tell. Today, I uncovered the last chamber beneath the commander's quarters. It was sealed from within. Inside were 3 things: a broken lantern, quill fused to the glass, and the remains of a letter, only half legible. The ink had soaked into the fibers, black as night, refusing to fade even after centuries. I read what I could. It was signed by Corporal Corin Hale. His hand shook near the end. The lines waver, ink pooled as though written by trembling fingers. He wrote of fire that went out all at once, of songs that came from nowhere, and of joining. The handwriting slows just before the final words, the last line reading, "Maybe it's time to go home." I've catalogued enough artifacts to know when truth hides behind myth. Every fortress leaves echoes, supply records, troop logs, correspondence, bones. But Fenwatch feels different. Even the ashes cling. When I brushed them aside, the motes of soot hung in the air longer than they should have, as though reluctant to fall. When I breathed, it tasted of iron and ash. The previous reports mention a fire that consumed the outpost, but there are no burn patterns consistent with natural flame. No scorch, no char, only vitrification, like stone turned to glass, as if the heat had come from within. Some historians believe it was a siege weapon. Others whisper of a curse tied to the chapel sigil. But the letters I found tell a quieter story. A song under the floorboards. Of fires that died without smoke. Men who walked willingly into the dark. It's not conquest that haunts these halls. It's devotion. Something older than loyalty and deeper than fear. I've been copying the surviving fragments into the record books by hand. Even with gloves, the parchment feels warm to the touch. There's one part that unsettles me most. A passage in which Corporal Hale describes the walls breathing. I brushed along the same stones earlier. The surface had strange striations, almost organic. Not quite veins, but not cracks either. If you press your palm flat against them, there's a faint vibration. Rhythmic. Steady. Like a heartbeat. I don't think it's the wind. I've begun to dream of the garrison. Not as it is, ruined, drowned, but as it must have been. Torches bright, banners high, laughter echoing off stone. I see faces I've never known, uniforms of red and gold. They turn to me as if expecting orders, and I look out. Over the forest, no marsh to be seen. When I wake, my hand smells faintly of smoke. There's a superstition among archivists that if you listen too long to a story soaked in sorrow, you begin to live it in small ways. Ink seeps inward. Words root themselves. I think about that when I hold this letter. About the man who wrote it, alone by his dying fire, trying to make sense of the silence pressing in. He thought he was reporting, but I think he was really confessing. And now, so am I. I've placed the recovered artifacts together on the desk. The lantern, the quill, the letter. When the light hits them just right, the reflections form a shape on the wall that almost looks like a window or a door. Sometimes sitting here, I imagine if I were to step through, I would find them all still there. Scouts, the soldiers, the commander, their faces calm, their eyes bright with that strange, quiet faith. Still standing at their posts, guarding a fire that no longer burns. It's raining harder now. The drops strike the stone like distant footsteps. Before I end this entry, I'll record one last observation. The night before last, I woke to find the candle at my bedside extinguished. And yet, the room was not dark. The ashes on the desk glowed faintly, silver, like moonlight trapped in dust. When I breathed out, the glow dimmed. When I breathed in, it brightened, as though the ruins themselves were breathing back. I don't know what remains here. Memory, magic, or simply the weight of too much death. But I know this. The walls still stand. Barely, but they stand. And maybe that's enough. Tomorrow, I'll seal this journal and send it to the conservatory with the recovered letters. Someone wiser than me can decide what happened here. For now, I'll let the silence have the last word. Filed and signed, Archivist Tarindra Vale, Fenwatch Ruins, Western Marches. May the fire rest, and may the quiet keep its secrets. Another letter returned to silence. I often wonder what became of those whose words we've just read. whether their stories ended in peace, or if their echoes still linger, waiting for someone, anyone, to remember. But for now, this one will rest here, among the other voices of the forgotten. Thank you for keeping me company tonight, here amongst the dust and the candlelight. If you'd like to hear more of the stories I've uncovered, the archives are always open. You need only listen. And if you have stories that you would like to add to the archive, or know where I can unearth more, send your missives by courier or scrying stone. Until next time, traveler.